fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty Hi-Yo Silver, the Lone Ranger. With his faithful Indian companion Tonto, the daring and resourceful masked rider of the plains led the fight for law and order in the early western United States. Nowhere in the pages of history can one find a greater champion of justice. Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear. From out of the past come the thundering hoofbeats of the great horse Silver. The Lone Ranger rides again.
Come on, Silver. Let's go, big fellow. Hi-Yo Silver! Hi!
The shots came from the trail that wound down the face of the cliff, and the Lone Ranger and Tonto urged their mounts toward the brink of the precipice.
Oh, Silver. Oh, easy. Steady, big fellow.
They drew rein and dismounted. Far below them, they could see a riderless horse and a man lying face down at the side of the trail.
Looks as if he rode into an ambush.
Plenty far from town, Kemosabe. Them not hear shots there.
We'll ride down and see if he's still alive. Easy, steady, big fellow. Come on, Silver.
Get him up, Scout.
Oh, Silver. Oh, easy, steady now.
When the Lone Ranger turned the fallen rider over, the moonlight flashed from the badge he was wearing.
Him, United States Marshal.
Yes, Tonto. It's Greg Warren.
That right. Me remember. You helped him round up smugglers on Rio Grande.
He's still alive. Only one of the bullets caught him.
Scalp wound.
Yes.
Plenty bad, Kemosabe.
We'll do what we can for him here, then we'll take him to our camp.
Me get bandage.
The marshal was taken to the Lone Ranger's camp, but it was not until morning that he opened his eyes. When he saw the masked man, he smiled in recognition and tried to get up.
No, Greg. Take it easy.
Glad to see you, mister.
I'm glad you're feeling better. What happened last night?
I don't know. I must have been sound asleep. Heard the shots, got hit, that's all.
Well, what brings you to Harding County?
A letter. My saddlebag. Read it.
Right.
The Lone Ranger found the letter and read it.
That answer your question?
Yes, Greg. But it makes me feel like asking a few more. And I'm sure that you're not familiar enough with the county to answer them.
All I know is what's in the letter.
What letter say?
It's from Mart Tolliver, Kemosabe. He says that Mike Dennison shot and killed his foreman, and that the sheriff is afraid to arrest him.
Well, is it the famous Mike Dennison, the one who used to be town marshal in Deadwood?
It's same fella.
I don't blame the sheriff. I don't care much for the job myself.
You're not going to be able to move for at least a week, Greg. But even if you could, you might not arrest Mike.
Why not?
Well, Mike is working for Judd Sayer, and Tolliver has been trying to put Sayer out of business. Sayer hired Mike to protect his cattle.
Well, Well, what about the shooting?
Well, there are two versions of that going around. Tolliver's men say they rode onto the Sayre Range to round up some of their own steers. Mike ordered them off, and when they refused to go without their cattle, Mike shot the foreman.
Just like that.
According to Sayre, though, the Lazy T men were rustling.
Well, if Mike has anyone to back up that story...
He doesn't. He was alone.
I see. Sort of puts him on the spot.
I'm still wondering who drag-gulched you last night, Greg. It doesn't sound like Mike at all, and there's no reason why Tolliver's men should do it.
Not after sending for me.
There are plenty bad feller in Hardin City.
Yes, that's true. Roof Holden runs the town, and they work for him. The sheriff's one of his men. Roof might not like the idea of having a United States Marshal around.
Sounds to me like one was needed bad. Ranchers fighting, a town full of crooks. You say I can't move for a week?
That right.
Well, something's got to be done. I wish I could swear you in as a deputy, mister.
Well, why can't you?
Why? Why, you're masked, for one thing.
I could wear a disguise instead of a mask.
Would you? Well, I don't have a deputy's badge, but you could wear mine. You'd be acting for me. Just find out what's going on, question Mike, question the Tolliver crew.
And try to find out who shot you.
Yeah, that too. Would you do it?
Why, of course, Greg. I'll ride your horse. I'll wear a bandage around my head. I'll let whoever shot you think their ambush failed completely.
At 8 o'clock the following evening, Clem Davis, the sheriff of Harding County, was just about to blow out the lamp and head for a scheduled meeting with Roof Holden at the Mansion House when the door of his office opened. A tall, broad-shouldered man wearing a marshal's badge stood there.
Why, Marshal.
You're surprised to see me, Sheriff?
Surprised? No, not at all. I got a letter saying you were coming. Greg Warren, isn't it? Glad to meet you. No, not surprised at all. It's that bandage. You've been wounded.
It's nothing, believe me.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. Now, if you have a little time, I'd like to talk over this shooting I'm supposed to investigate.
Well, of course. I have affidavits here from half a dozen of Tolliver's men. Yeah, here they are. They all say the same thing. They were rounding up some Lazy T steers when Mike Dennison rode up and ordered them off the Sayre spread. Clancy, the foreman, refused to go without his cows, and Mike shot him dead.
It doesn't sound like Mike.
Why, you know him?
I've heard of him. He never shoots without giving the other man a chance to draw.
I'm just telling you what Tolliver's men said. You can read their statements for yourself.
Do you have one from Mike?
No. According to Sayre, the Lazy T crew were rustling. I wouldn't put it past them either. There's a feud between the two ranches.
Is that why you refused to arrest Mike?
Refused?
Yes.
Tolliver lies if he said that. I just haven't been able to find him.
Have you looked for him?
Of course. I went to the Sayre Ranch straight off, but he isn't there.
You mean he left the county?
Oh, I doubt that. He and Molly Sayre are planning to get married. He wouldn't go away for good. He's hiding out.
Any idea where?
No, but I'll bet Sayre has. Or Molly, anyway.
I'll take a ride out to the Sayre Ranch. Oh, how do you get there?
It's west of town. Just follow the main trail till it branches out 3 ways. The branch to the north is the one you want.
Where do the others lead?
Straight ahead to the Lazy T.
And the south trail?
A shortcut to the pass. You'd only take that if you wanted to head for Mexico.
I see. Well, thanks, Sheriff.
You going out there tonight?
Well, I may as well.
Why not? Not that you'll find out anything about Mike, but the Sayres will put you up for the night anyway. Better accommodation than you'll find at the Mansion House. Well, I wish you luck, Marshal.
Thanks.
You'll need it if you run into Mike. Just happen to, I mean. They're not lying when they say he has the fastest draw in the West.
The Lone Ranger mounted Greg Warren's black and rode out of town. The sheriff watched him go and then hurried down the street to the Mansion House. Tonto, who had been waiting in the shadows, followed him to the hotel, through the crowded lobby and into the adjoining cafe.
Howdy, Joe. Where's Roof?
In the back room. He's been asking for you.
I've been detained.
Tonto watched the sheriff walk the length of the bar and enter the room at the rear. Then the Indian left the cafe and circled the building. The window of the back room was closed. So was the window on the floor above. But there was a ladder lying on the ground, and Tonto placed it against the building. He climbed it to the second-story window. It was unlocked. He opened it and climbed inside. The only light in the room came through a chink in the flooring from the room below. The opening wasn't large enough to see through, but Tonto could hear plainly, and he recognized several voices. The sheriff's, Rufe Holden's, and another that belonged to one of Rufe's henchmen, Trigger Gordon.
I swear I'm telling the truth now. I was talking to him not 5 minutes ago. He's on his way out to the Sayer Ranch.
Well, Trigger?
I told you how it was. I hit him all right. I was going to make sure I'd finished him.
You were going to.
Yeah, but 2 riders were coming down the trail. I had to clear out.
We'd better hold off for a while, huh, Rufe?
Yeah.
Oh, we can't. Gonzales wants those cattle at the border by the first of the week or the deal is off. One lawman more or less can't stop us. Besides, he'll be so tangled up in the feud between Tolliver and Sayer before the night's over that he won't be able to do anything about us.
You're going ahead with your plans?
Yep. We'll be leaving in an hour. You get out the lazy tea right away.
All right.
Now, you got the story straight?
If you haven't changed anything.
Tell it to me.
I was looking for Mike. I came to this Box Canyon. Where is it exactly?
Tell him, Trigger.
It's on Sayer's land, about a mile north of the boundary between the 2 ranches. West of the creek, half a mile.
Yeah, that's right. A sort of barricade had been built across the opening of the canyon, and I decided to investigate. There were 100 head of cattle.
Only about 50 head.
Hey, you see, it was supposed to be 100.
Never mind. Go on.
Inside the canyon, there were 50 head of lazy T cattle. I'll say to Tolliver, Tolliver, I don't want any gunplay now. You let me... Oh, what's so funny?
I can hear him exploding. No gunplay. That'd be a first-class battle.
Yeah. And way down on the Lazy T South Range, we'll be driving the big herd to market.
Get going, Sheriff. Easy, steady now.
The Lone Ranger had hardly dismounted in front of the Sayer ranch house when the front door opened and the rancher stepped out with a shotgun ready for action. His daughter was directly behind him.
Who are you? Put your hands up.
Pa, he's wearing a badge.
He's too big for the sheriff.
The badge says United States Marshal.
A marshal.
What do you want here?
I want to have a talk with you. Any objection?
Ask him in, Pa.
Come in, Marshal.
Thanks.
Sit down, please.
Thank you.
What's your business here, Marshal?
There's no sense in pretending, Pa. We know why he's here.
Then will you tell me where I can find Mike Dennison?
What do you want with him?
We know that, too. Tolliver's told you a pack of lies, and you mean to arrest Mike.
I want to find out the facts in the case.
Mike's been accused of murder. You mean to arrest him and hold him for trial.
That's the only way he can clear himself.
And what happens while Mike is in jail? Tolliver will drive off all our cattle. The only thing that stops him is that he's afraid of Mike. Mike won't let himself be taken, Marshal.
Where is he?
He won't let himself be taken. Won't you... Can't you give us a break? Mike wants to put all the past behind him and settle down and live in peace.
He should want to clear his name.
Later, not now. Not while we're fighting for the ranch.
If the law is on your side, you don't need Mike's guns.
We think different. I'm warning you, Marshal, for the last time, for your own good. Leave him alone. If you should ever meet and try to use your gun, well, you must have heard of Mike's reputation. You'll die.
Someone just rode up.
Just one of the hands.
I do hope it isn't. Oh, no, Mike!
The curtain falls on the first act of our Lone Ranger adventure. Before the next exciting scenes, please permit us to pause for just a few moments. Now to continue. As the Lone Ranger was talking with Judge Sayer and his daughter, the front door burst open, and Mike Dennison stepped into the living room of the ranch house. He stopped when he saw the marshal's badge the Lone Ranger was wearing. His hands hung easily at his side, close to his guns. His clear gray eyes were steady, alert. He said nothing. It was the Lone Ranger who broke the silence.
Hello, Mike.
Oh, Mike, why have you come here?
I had to. I won't be taken to jail, Marshal. I warn you not to go for your guns.
I won't.
Thank heaven. Mike doesn't want to kill you.
I realize that. And I don't want to kill him.
You couldn't.
He might. I don't know anything about his draw, but he's the first man who ever talked about gunplay to me and held my eyes without a flicker. He just might.
I'm more interested in something you said. You had to come here. Why?
Because Tolliver's pulled another of his dirty deals.
Tolliver, rustling again?
I'll go tell the men.
I've already stopped the bunkhouse. They're saddling up.
Oh,
But this time it's rustling in reverse.
What do you mean?
Tolliver's driven 50 head of Lazy T stock into the box canyon near the creek and barricaded the opening. It's a frame-up. He aims to show those steers to the law, to the sheriff and to you, Marshal, and charge us with stealing them.
Why, they're sneaking coyotes.
What are you going to do about it?
Drive them back on the Lazy T ground?
That sounded like a good idea.
You won't try to stop us?
Why should I? You're anxious to get rid of the cattle. That convinces me you didn't steal them.
And you won't try to arrest me?
We can talk that over later.
What's going on outside? It's an Indian on a pig.
and look at that white horse he's leading.
The Indian's a friend of mine. He may have a message for me.
Stand clear of that Indian, men. He's a friend of the marshal.
I see you brought Silver, Tonto.
Me think maybe you need him.
Oh, what's happened?
Me follow sheriff like you say. Him go to mansion house after you leave.
Sayer and his hands listened in amazement as Tonto told his story, and when he had finished,
Tolliver steals our cattle, Holden steals his. Turnabout's fair play, I'm in.
We've got to stop Holden.
We?
If necessary, I'll try to do it alone. But I'd like your help.
It's no business of ours. We'll drive the Lazy T cows back to their home range. And if we run into Tolliver, we'll tell him about the trick that's been played on him, but it's up to him to save his cattle.
How about Mike?
What about Mike?
Sooner or later, you'll have to stand trial for murder. The only witnesses to the shooting, outside of Mike, are the Lazy T riders. Well, they're hostile now. But a good turn might make them change their testimony.
I doubt it.
It's worth a chance, though, Pa.
What do you say, Mike?
I'm willing to ride with you, Marshal.
All right, then. We're all with you.
Good. Now, where's the best place to stop Holden?
Well, they'll have to drive the cattle through the pass. If we head west from here and take the creek trail south, we should be able to get to the pass ahead of them.
And that's what we'll do. Tonto, you ride straight for Tolliver's. Tell him what you've told us.
Sheriff of Tolliver now. Maybe him say Tonto lie.
If he doesn't want to believe you...
Now, wait a minute, Pa. There's something in what the Indian says. I'll ride with you, Tonto. I can convince Tolliver you're telling the truth.
I doubt it.
Then I'll write him a note.
Well, that might do it. And if the word of the United States Marshal isn't good enough for him, he deserves to lose his cattle.
the Lone Ranger wrote the note. Tonto and Molly started for the Tolliver Ranch with it.
Get him
Get up, get up.
The others headed west.
Come Silver!
Hard riding brought them to the pass ahead of the outlaws, but following the creek trail, they had seen no sign of the rustlers.
Oh, Silver! Oh, steady, big fella. We'll leave our horses in that grove of trees, then take cover behind the rocks at the opening of the pass. All right, let's go. Come on, Silver!
There was a full moon, and hardly had the men taken cover under the Lone Ranger's direction than Mike spotted a cloud of dust to the northeast.
Here they come, Marshal.
Yes. Now hold your fire until I give you the word. I'll give them a chance to surrender.
15 minutes later, it was possible to make out the riders at the point of the herd.
That's Roof Holden.
And Trigger.
The Lone Ranger stepped into the open and held up his hand.
Stop where you are!
The Lone Ranger hit the ground as both Roof and Trigger opened fire. A bullet chipped the rock that gave him shelter.
No surrender there.
Open fire!
There were 20 men with Ruth. There were only 6 with the Lone Ranger. The outlaws rallied around their leader and tried to blast out the defenders of the pass. But after 2 of the rustlers had been wounded, they deserted their exposed position and urged their mounts to the rear of the milling herd.
What are they up to now?
You think they'll make a break for it, Marshal?
No,
Don't show yourself. They shoot again.
not at me. They're trying to stampede the herd.
What, through here? We'll be trampled underfoot.
If we stay where we are. Men, they're trying to drive the cattle through, stampede them. Now take to the higher ground, both sides of the pass. Find what cover you can. The gang will be riding through behind the herd.
Here they come.
Get moving, fast!
As the steers raced for the opening of the pass, the cowboys started to climb the sheer walls of the pass. There was little cover for them there, but the higher ground was all that could save them from the thundering hoofs. The cattle stormed past. Clouds of billowing, choking dust rose from the floor of the pass. The Lone Ranger raised his neckerchief to protect his mouth and nose and squinted through the alkaline haze. The thunder of the stampede faded a little. Then the Lone Ranger caught the sharper sound of hoofs that were shod, horses. He caught a glimpse of Holden's white Stetson.
Now!
A cloud of dust still obscured the opening of the pass, but the Lone Ranger knew that Rufe had been dropped from his saddle and that the outlaws had pulled up. Their confused shouts told the Lone Ranger that they were completely disorganized by the loss of their leader, and a moment later he heard them urging their mounts away from the pass. He scrambled down to level ground and called for Silver.
There's Silver!
The cowboys gathered around him as Silver raced from the shelter of the trees, the Mustangs following close behind.
Well, here's Ruth.
Wounded?
Yeah, not bad, though. Knocked out when he fell.
No, the wound isn't serious. I'll bandage it. Now we'll tie his hands and feet so he can't get away when he comes to.
When Holden's wound had been bandaged and he had been bound hand and foot, the cowboys swung into their saddles.
Steady, fella.
The outlaws were heading east.
They'll run into Tolliver's crew.
Let's hope. Come on, Silver!
The Lone Ranger gave Silver his head, and the pursuit began. After riding due east for a mile, the outlaws changed their course, and a moment later the Lone Ranger and his companion saw the reason. Tolliver's men were heading toward them. Now the rustlers realized their only hope for escape lay in the speed of their mounts, and they lashed them unmercifully. The Lone Ranger restrained his followers, and although the outlaws drew away a little, it wasn't long before their mounts began to labor, and the pursuit began to close in once more. The outlaws opened fire. The running gunfight continued for half an hour. Both outlaws and cattlemen dropped from their saddles. But finally, the outlaws' horses could be driven no further. The remaining members of the band threw down their guns. Their prisoners secure, the cattlemen began to care for the wounded. Toward morning, the Lone Ranger and Tonto returned to the camp with Rufe Holden.
I'll take him, Marshal.
All right, easy.
Is he still alive?
Marshal,
Yes, Molly? Easy, steady, big fella.
Tolliver wants to talk to you.
Oh, where is he?
This way. He's badly wounded.
Better take a look at him, Tonto.
I've done what I could for him, but I don't know. Here he is. Mr. Tolliver, here's the marshal.
Oh, I'm glad he got back.
Me look at wound.
There's nothing you can do for me, Indian.
Oh, we'll see.
Marshal,
Yes?
when a man's going to die, he doesn't mind confessing that he's been a fool. But he doesn't want people to think worse of him than they have to. I've been an awful fool.
In what way?
Oh, jumping at conclusions. Jumping at the wrong conclusions. We'd been losing cattle, see? I thought Sayre was stealing them. I thought I'd get even with him by stealing his. Now I see it must have been Holden's men who were rustling my cows.
Tolliver, will you admit your men were rustling on the day your foreman was shot?
Yes. Getting even, we thought.
And Mike shot in self-defense.
Yes. Clancy drew first. That's right.
Oh.
The men will testify to it. You don't have to arrest Mike, Marshal. Just see that Holden and the sheriff and all that gang get what's coming to them.
Where is the sheriff?
They locked him up back at the ranch.
We'll pick him up there.
Good. Now I can die in peace.
You not die.
What's that, Injun?
Bullet travel up. It not near heart. Doctor take out bullet, you get well plenty soon.
Hey there.
What's the matter? Is it any harder to confess you've been wrong now that you know you're going to live?
No, want to set things straight, even if it means going to jail myself.
Paul won't press any charges against you, Mr. Tolliver. All we want is to be friends.
I'm glad you came along when you did, Marshal.
The Holden gang were taken to jail, and 2 weeks later a judge arrived in Harding City, and they were tried. Marshal Warren was well enough to handle the case against them, and after they were sentenced, the judge called him aside.
Marshal, this was an open and shut case. Evidence was conclusive. There's no doubt about that. But I want to point out that you neglected to produce an important witness for the prosecution.
Who was that, sir?
Your own deputy. There's nothing funny about it. Law officer's job isn't finished until the criminal is behind bars.
No, I was here to see to that. And my deputy never sticks around when he isn't needed.
Indeed. And who decides whether he's needed or not?
Why, he does.
Really? You seem to have a mighty independent subordinate, Marshal.
Subordinate? Him? To me? Oh, no, you've got it all wrong.
He's your deputy, isn't he?
He was, for a little while. I guess that's something I'll tell my grandchildren. But I'll let you in on the secret right now. I'll say, once upon a time, when outlaws were running wild in Harding County, your old grandpa had a special deputy. A mighty special deputy. Believe it or not, he was the Lone Ranger.
This is a feature of the Lone Ranger Incorporated, created by George W. Trendle, produced by Trendle Campbell Enterprises, directed by Charles D. Livingston, and edited by Fran Stryker. The part of the Lone Ranger is played by Brace Beamer.